Well, we've reached the end of January. Wow, this month went quick. A lot going on this month in the anime and manga world and in the real world itself. It is the 30th of the month, January, Thursday, is 6 p.m. Eastern. Uh, Thank you for tuning in on both Rumble and YouTube. Don't forget to hit that like, share, comment, and don't forget, hit that subscribe button. It moves us up in the algorithm. It helps us a lot. We do really, really, truly appreciate it. And welcome to another edition of Otaku Thursday. Uh, so much to discuss. I mean, today's particular video, we are going to be focusing on piracy, anime piracy. And basically, there's a lot that's going on. But, since the inception point, and I call this all the way back to when I was a kid, we've always had some sort of piracy in the anime and manga industry. And I've always said this. It really drives, it drives and build the industry itself, but it still doesn't get that much respect. It's not meaning it legitimizes it, but it has to put itself as part of the history of the anime and manga world. But before we get into all of that fun stuff, I just want to talk a little bit about what's been going on, what I've been watching, some of the things that that interested me out there. I mean, obviously, Damio, another great episode. We're counting down to the end, which will be in February, to episode 20. I did like the homage to the Ginyu Force. That was pretty good in itself. The fights have been still really, really good. I know we're headed to something really major. And I know in February, I know there's some big things coming. I know Super. I think that they're restarting Super in manga, but I believe there's some sort of thing out there that basically, I guess they're going to not redo, but restart the series somewhat on there to continue on. Because I think this is where Damia ends on this. I think this is it, for this particular storyline in itself. But a lot of things that I've been watching. I've gone back and started watch. Believe it or not, I started the other night. A great classic, Record of the Lotus War. I mean, if you haven't seen this series yet, you can catch it on Crunchyroll. It is fantastic. It's beautifully done. The action is really good on there. It's a great classic if you've not watched it at all. Another one that's got my interest, and I'm just starting into episode 2, is Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf. Now, if you haven't catched this little gem, it's a story about a guy, he works by day in the office, and he has some sort of weird ability when he goes to bed at night. He wakes up in the fantasy world for the day, and he's able to interact with everybody there, and he goes on adventures on there, and he has this elf girl that's always hanging around him, and one day they both get killed by a big dragon situation. Now, normally what he says, he gets killed, he wakes up in his bed, and this is what happens. He ends up waking up in his bed, but he was hanging on to the elf girl, and yes, guess what? She gets yanked into the real world. This is sort of like, to bring up the one particular Nightmare on Elm Street, when Freddy Krueger got pulled into the real world in the movie. So like that, sort of like it has that kind of a sense, but it's pretty fun, because she's getting excited. The elf is getting excited that she's in this world she's never been in before. The food is fantastic, but she don't speak the language. No, she doesn't. It's kind of funny because the other end of it is that he learned the language, and he learned different languages there for all the time that he spent in this world. And it seems like he's been doing this since he was a kid. Like he's learned some beast languages that even the elf doesn't even know about on there. The other thing that I've got, and I'm on season 1, and of course season 2, and the only reason I'm doing started this is because for some reason on some of the top 10 boards, this one has been coming up. Toilet Bound Hakona Kun And I'm still trying to figure that one out about a bathroom ghosts. So I'm just still starting on that. The other one that's got me that seems to be pretty interesting is I May Be a Guild Receptionist. That one is pretty funny in itself, about a receptionist that by day she's a guild receptionist, but secretly she's a hero, so she doesn't have to put overtime in. She's so OP that basically she takes out the major problems, so she doesn't have to do overtime. Yeah, figure that one. One of the other ones is Headhunter to Another World, where an actual guy who does headhunting for businesses and stuff like that, he gets dragged into a fantasy world by a demon king to handle something for him. Figure that one out. I'm only on episode 3 on that one. Obviously, Red Ranger is still excellent. Zenshu still going strong. I still got to get back to 100 Girlfriends, who are really, 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 really. And I'm still only in the first season on that one. Demon Lord 2099. I haven't got a chance to go back and finish that yet. Sometimes I always wait. Some of the ones that have the English dub, I watch it both ways. Yeah, I started another one called A Diary Life of a Middle-Aged Online Salesman. That one happens to be a little unusual. Switching over to High Dive. Just finished the Bahiko, the Elf Girl's Cat Secretly an E-Rank Monster, which, whoa, we had a lot of nudity in that last episode. Holy crap. And then we had the introduce of Stella, which, not to get, if you haven't seen it yet, the last 2 episodes, close your ears now. It seems like Tamara has killed a dragon who's reincarnated into a human girl, part dragon, and she's hot up for him. In other words, she wants to have his babies. It's the weirdest things that you would see. So, this is exactly the anime world, is that they can create some of this great, great comedies. Yeah, it's ecchi. Yeah, okay, it's ecchi.
Give it here.
You want?
You think you can stop me that easy? Well, guess again. I'm used to women's bodies.
What the hell is even that?
The comedic level of it is fantastic. But see, that's the anime universe. You can be sexy and funny at the same time, and that's what and that's what a lot of people don't understand about the anime universe. They sit there and chastise it all the time because there's a lot of fan service, and some of them are even a little bit more interspecies reviewers. That's another one that it's really funny for what it is, and basically you sit there and you're like, oh, they're talking about prostitution and sex with all these other beings and this. But look at it from a comedy point of view, because that's what it is, really. Yeah, it's sex. Sort. I mean, some of the beings in there, wouldn't call it sexy, but some of the variations of these escorts is just what they go through. It's hysterical. The other one is Dad Becomes a Villainess, Reincarnation, which I'm still on episode 2 on that. Of course, we're waiting for the restart on Danmachi, which is about I think the next 2 episodes are in about a week and a half, around there, what we said. So, we're waiting for that on sale. We said Damio was good. Of course, obviously, another great episode out of Solo Leveling this past week. That one is really, really good. But there's so much more I got to catch up with. And some of the stuff from last season, too, that I'm still, it's so much sometimes to take in, especially the schedule that I have. I mean, it is rough. But besides what's going on that, a couple of things that are in the Anime and Manga News. Obviously, there's a release on the what is it? I wouldn't call it a sequel, probably a side story. I would say side series. My Hero Academia is going to be returning with a new series called Vigilantes, which will be on April 7th of this year. The trailer looks good on there, but there's already a controversy on it. Anime News and Facts had put this out that basically there's a character called Pop Step, and her costume has been sort of changed in the anime version of it from the manga. It's a lot less skin to that point, and that's the thing that gets me. I understand to that situation, but you didn't have to go that far. You didn't have to go that far. The characters, it's in the manga that way. It's in the manga that way. I mean, well, what are we doing? Pulling a WB Kids? I mean, aren't we tired of that shit? I mean, really? Come on, guys, comment out there. And they did the same thing to Toga and Kami also in the series. That they changed things around on there. And I know someone was saying, not to give anything away on there, that one of the other, the characters was, that, oh God, she wasn't wearing clothes and she was invisible? I mean, come on. Come on. Really? Have you not watched The Invisible Man? Really, truly. The other thing is that, we got news that ReZero will be back actually in literally a couple of days. Getting into the first week of February. There's going to be like I guess this is a side story or a short. It's counter-attack arc. And it's going to be 8 episodes long from ReZero on there. The trailer is out on there. And it'll be starting on the 5th. And then, of course, we hear that we got English dubs coming up on Amaku MD Dr. Detective. And the Osa Nubi adventure trained to death by the most powerful party became invincible. We got English dubs for that as well. And of course, trailers are out for Meibashi Witches. Another one that's going to be out, that's up by Sunrise. That's coming out on April of 2025, which that should be good. We also gotten a poster out for Go-Go Loser Ranger Season 2, which will be out April 13th of this year. Now that we have the Red Ranger in another as a fantasy adventurer, I think this will put a boost on this series itself, get a nice healthy boost. Also, we finding out that Komi-san can't communicate. The manga is ending sometime in early February. Also, I just want to bring this up because a lot of people have been talking about this lately, and unless something has changed to the point, but if you know Yu Kamaya, who is the person behind No Game No Life, has said online those leaks that have come out are false. There is no season 2 in the works, which I'm upset about. And basically, I would love to see a second season of this. This is a good story. The controversy in itself is just literally just people that are the haters that just don't like anime. I mean, this is what happens all the time. You got haters out there. The thing is that they look at these characters. They say, "Oh, it's a young character. This, and that," and they resemble something. What do they resemble? Because if you look at most of anime, most of the characters pretty much almost look the same as each other from series to series. I mean, you're talking a particular style, and that's what anime is that particular type of style of animation. Characters, the eyes, the body works, the emotions, and everything like that. So we got a big delay. Back in October, we had gotten word that the light novel series Kantahoshi's Past the Monster Meet Milady, which they were set for premiere of 2025. It's basically, I guess it's going to be put on a hold, and it's going to be pushed to October possibly. We're still waiting to get full notification on that, but that's what we're getting. I mean, we've been seeing this lately, some anime that they're dealing with monster meat and stuff like that, weird things to eat. Lately, we had the campfire one, we had the other one that basically was able to pull stuff off of Amazon and bring it into the fantasy universe. Mix it in with, he was able to get the ingredients and use it on monster meat and stuff like that, make everything a little bit more tasty. But this is another series that people wanted to see, and it's coming, but it's going to be delayed for a little bit longer. Also, the Berserk manga is coming back for February 14th. It's good for Valentine's Day. We've gotten word that Undead Unluck manga is now officially over. Sorry for those of you fans out there, but it's on that. We also got news that Project IG is absorbing Signal MD to create, which was founded by IG Port. So now they're just bringing that in. I mean, if you're familiar with the work on Signal MD, they were responsible for Fooly Cooly Progressive, Ninja the Starry Bride, and Napping Princess, and Birthday Wonderland. So now they're merged together. I mean, you still got under IG Port, you still have Wit Studios and publisher Matt Garden out there. I mean, are they going to be absorbed into IG? It's hard to say. I mean, IG's been doing a lot lately, especially a lot of work with Netflix and a couple of other streaming sites in the U.S. So, we're going to be probably seeing a lot more for them as they merge more together. But let's get into the main story today, the main crux, the meat, as they say, or the beast meat to the point. Like I said before in the opening, piracy has been around. Bootlegging is another thing you can say on it. It's been around since the early days, man, the 70s, the 80s. As we began into, and you must say like, well, 70s. You have to understand that basically, when videotapes started to come out, okay, to this point, and before the first VCR came out or Betamax, you had people bootlegging movies onto 3/4-inch tape. What do I mean by 3/4-inch tape? For those of you in the industry who knows what 3/4-inch tape, 3/4-inch tape was the VHS type, but a lot larger. The tape itself was 3/4-inch. We used it for broadcast. In fact, I have a slew that I need to transfer to digital from my old show days. Basically, what it was larger. You were able to fit a certain amount. I think the max you can do on it was 60 minutes was about the maximum you can get on one reel on that. And basically, you had people out there putting movies on it. Now, you guys yourself, what, they changed the speed and stuff like that? Nah, you would get 2 tapes. There were a couple of duplication houses, houses that handled transfers of film to video that were doing it, under the table. And then we get into the VHS era itself, when the VHSs were coming out and the Betamax and that whole thing, and then the creation of the video store. You still had that going on, but now you were able to fit everything on one tape. And that, the industry was worried about that for the longest. Now, what does that have to do with anime? Well, basically, you had series that came out and people were starting to take interest of it when you had UHF channels, especially in New York and cross country, that was dedicating some airtime to basically Japanese television. Nippon Television, for example, that was one of the you had Channel 47 here, WJNU out of New Jersey, which broadcasts throughout the tri-state area. They're one of the biggest Spanish stations. It was Channel 41 and 47. But before there was those, and the reason why is because before there was like these late night commercials for all night long that pay tons of money for time on there. They got paid from these particular stations, Nippon, Telefrance, and a couple others that literally they knew before the cable TV allowed them to have channels on the cable box. They knew they needed to start broadcasting into the U.S. This was the things we did. This is the things we did that basically brought, programming from overseas into the United States. And the thing is that, you had all these guys that basically figured out ways, Chinatown and a couple other places, that they were able to screen grab or record certain shows and what they call it, subtitle them. Even though they were subtitled on UHF, they would sell it to people in advance before actually, as soon as they aired in Japan, actually, and they sold it through there. When the UHF station started to go away, that kind of broadcasting and cable started to bring it into the fold, and this is just right prior to Sci-Fi Channel and Toonami. They started to get other shows that weren't being shown here, and they pushed it out. As soon as someone came in for one particular, say they came in for Galaxy Express 39, they were told, either they were playing it on a TV in the store, or they had a poster of it up on there, and they said, "Hey, I want that. I want that show. Do you have it?" And they'll tell you, "Hey, listen, this is what it is. It's on VHS, and this is how much it cost." And back then, it was like you paid, starting off, you get paid at about $50 to $75. And then the price came down to about $25, and that kind of balanced there. And that's before really the industry got well into VHS duplication and DVD duplication of these directly from Toho, Toei, all these studios on there. And these studios knew that this was happening. For the reason is the popularity, they knew they had to start dubbing these, English dub. They needed to do English dub, Spanish dub. English and Spanish were the first two they were really getting into, because that is where the money was at that point. I mean, now you see French, or you see Russian, you see all different languages on a lot of these anime now. And then as we get into the Sci-Fi Channel Saturdays and the Toonami, which brought all these out and popular. Network television started to look at this as well. Saturday morning cartoons. This is right before Saturday morning cartoons got canceled. You had stuff like the WB, and the problem is with that, getting into that. And this is where the piracy. I believe the piracy started to really, truly explode to this point, because the people were still pirating. I mean, you were able to get some of this stuff on DVD by this point, VHS or DVD, depending on at what point that you're talking about. But the real harsh reality was, as soon as you got WB Kids, people have talked about this before, where basically they, whether it was Toonami or whether it was WB, you had erases. They were erasing stuff. They were changing stuff around, editing it, changing the language, stuff like, the sexuality in Sailor Moon. They were doing that. Basically the type of content. They were eliminating guns out of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon. Tenchi Muyo, and a couple others that they basically... There are Hot Springs episode where there was some brief nudity. They edited in bikinis to that point. Basically, Card Captors was the same way. You had same-sex relationships that were going on. One Piece, you had basically a cigarette changed into a lollipop from one of the characters. Outlaw Star was another one that ended up to that same thing. Shaman King's religious interests certain characters on the show was changed around, edited for that. Even Cowboy Bebop, and even and people call back to the early Dragon Ball Z, the edits that happened. The removal of the blood, the violence, the language, changing Mr. Popo Blue. The Home for Infinite Losers. That's Hell, but they changed it to Home for Infinite Losers. I mean, this is some of the things that actually happened in these points. But I call a little hypocrisy on that, especially with the WB. Why? Why do I call it hypocrisy? Because I'll tell you this. They wanted to get rid of the guns from the kids and stuff like that. Now, there's a little bit show on there, and of Batman. The Batman series. Now, one particular series, actually Batman, you had it there too in the regular series. In the Batman the Animated Series, you had Batman Beyond. And Batman held a gun in the very first episode, even though the first episode was first aired at prime time when it came out on a Sunday, 8 o'clock on prime time, but it was advertised for kids. So what was that about? You removed the guns from Yu-Gi-Oh!, but you didn't remove the guns from Batman Beyond. Can you tell me that? And some of the other series. I mean, we can go into a deep dive of the American IPs versus the Japan IPs, which ones got the actual censorship and all. We could probably, if we really go into it, do a deep dive into that. Maybe one day we'll do that. But, you look to that and say, why? And you say, well, it's for kids. It's for the kids on there. Okay. I can understand that. But I guarantee you move this to prime time, you would have still had a large consistency of viewership. Because these series, listen, I was a kid once. And a lot of these shows had their things on there, but it didn't hurt me. The shows are still pretty much the same. Some of it's a little bit more racier as far as content, but it's a story. And this is the same type of stories that is broadcast from American IPs, primetime stuff. You see it on The Simpsons, Family Guy, and many other shows. Even stuff that's on Netflix. I mean, you have one particular show on Netflix. Netflix's Big Mouth, which has kids, young kids in the series, and they discuss LGBTQ, sexuality, self-gratification. You have a hormone monster, which I like the hormone monster. Season 1 was good, but they went a little bit too far with season 2 and above. They went too far with it. And there are other series on there for, they list for older kids and stuff like that. And I wouldn't list it for older kids. When you look at it directly and you see some of the stuff that's on there. And then you got stuff like Paradise PD, which, I enjoy Paradise PD. But if kids look at it, they say, well, it's cartoons for kids. It's not. If you ever watch Paradise PD, it's pretty racy in itself. I mean, the main character talks about his nuts being blown off, that he has to wear patches, for basically, to keep himself being a man, to that point. But these are the things that it happens, and moving through the years, as we got into the online, and basically, you started with LimeWire with the music, basically on there, and then you moved into stuff like Pirate Bay, I think it's RMRG from Russia, and a couple of others that basically started off with torrents, to that point, and people were getting their fix on that, especially stuff that was slowly released out of Japan or didn't come out. I mean, you have stuff that's now, for example, Macross, a ton of Macross stuff that's getting released now in the States, or I say in the West, finally, but unfortunately Disney got a hold of it. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you straight out. All the stuff that's on Hulu and Disney Plus, don't go to watch Macross there. And I'm going to tell you straight out. Because recently we've found out that Macross Dynamite 7, which I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen it at all. Eventually I will get to see it. It's something that one of the things I've missed in the years. In Disney's stupid business practices, or idiotic business practices, they decided to edit out certain subplots in the series. And I'll read a little bit of this off the Otaku USA article. It's like an online user on Reddit noticed the change in Macross Dynamite 7. Wrote, Disney has removed the entire Maylene subplot with the producer out of the show. I know opinions on this are going to be mixed, but this isn't exactly people's most beloved moment from the series or anything. But regardless of your thoughts on this tastefulness of it, I think it's bad precedents to set. I also think especially hypocritical when you compare it to some of the live action stuff that's available on these Western streaming services. And that's spot on. What that Reddit user wrote is spot the fuck on. Because, not only Disney has edited that, I mean, Disney's pulled a whole Simpson episodes, like for the one where they would go to Hong Kong for mentioning Tiananmen Square. There's a flirting scene in Toy Story 2 that got pulled. And a lot of other stuff that, this is just material censorship to the nature. Now, there was a time, because people said Disney doesn't have R-rated stuff. There was under several brands, Buena Vista Productions and also Touchstone Pictures were two of the companies they did. Believe it or not, hey, listen, for how dark it was and the storyline, you have to remember the Black Hole wasn't released under a Disney mark. It was released under Buena Vista because of how dark the storyline was. Especially, the talk of characters getting lobotomies, there's a scene where one of the characters gets, they try to lobotomize her toward the end of the movie. And then when you find out, I hate to give away on this, that the crew didn't leave the ship, that basically the main villain, played by Maximilian Schell, which he did a fantastic job on the character, he lobotomized the entire crew and turned them into mindless slaves. And that whole ending of Dante's Inferno at the end, which is like, that gives nightmares to everyone. But I saw it out when I was a kid, and I had no problem with that. But this is the hypocrisy on Disney. They used to do this stuff. They used to do R-rated, raunchy stuff. And you say, well, what else? Ruthless People. If you've not seen one of the great comedies that come out of Touchstone, Bette Midler in there, and a great cast. Story about a kidnapping, and sex and violence. I mean, there's a whole segment where, and I have to laugh, that basically you had Danny DeVito in there, picks up a phone and tells the person on there, he's like,
Hello? Debbie? Yeah, Debbie's here. Who's this? Well, Ralph, Debbie can't talk right now. My off. How about if I have her call you back when I'm done?
And he goes, I love wrong numbers. I mean, that was funny in itself. And everybody was good. Helen Slater, Bill Pullman, Judge Reinhold. I mean, it was some good stuff in there. But it was pretty darn raunchy. This was an Abram Zucker movie. You know how crazy those movies get to that point, But I'm not even getting into the propaganda and politicization that they'll put into certain shows, even stuff made for the kids that they will put in, like for little kids, they put in gay characters in there. And, they go after the anime for doing that on a regular series, stuff that for an adult. But meanwhile, they're okay putting it for a kids series on their own streaming site. Again, this is the hypocrisy for this situation. And for those of you who say, well, where can I see still Dynamite 7 and all their Macross? VPN, Amazon Prime Japan, and the Bandai channel in Japan. Basically, they have these. And I think this is the reason why that two of the other series, Do You Remember, and the original Macross series they have not given into them. Because I know Do You Remember just got re-released, remastered 4K in the theaters, and it's selling out crazy. I'm hoping that they release it here in the U.S. in theaters, because I would love to see that on a widescreen. So fantastic movie for itself. But see, they're not the only ones. I mean, we've heard the Funimation situation. We heard the Crunchyroll situation, where they sit there and they just selective edit certain things as far as the English dub, or sometimes the subtitling, to the point that they'll interject current day politics to something that's not what was said. You don't change what was said in a script because you don't like the script overseas. This is why you hear companies like Toho, who's making deals with companies here merging together to basically put themselves, to subtitle and English dub it themselves. Right now you have VLC Media Player is putting in AI into their systems. So basically, if you're watching something out of country that doesn't have subtitling, like a Japanese anime, it will automatically generate the subtitling. I mean, our show here on Otaku Thursday, and of course, Man with the Show, anything on Cuticast TV, we use sort of a similar version through YouTube for our subtitling. It makes it easier, to the point. Eventually down the line, when we have the money and be able to pay someone to translate properly our stuff, we'll do it. It does cost money. The major problem is that they, you got people out there that when you translate, your job is to translate the script, not to reinterpret the story itself, not to put it into context because you don't like the politics. If you're in a job, you don't like the politics of the programming you're working on, then you're in the wrong business. And what is always the big excuse, the big fucking excuse that you hear day in, day out? Oh, the Americans in the West, they won't understand the Japanese. Then why has it lasted this long? We understand it. There are those of us who went to learn Japanese, to learn the culture, who have visited the country, who's enjoyed the content, and the rich, robust, and of course the dark history points as well. Remember, it's the fans that are pointing out the problems when it comes to bad subtitling, bad dubbing, bad charactership. I mean, even in the gaming world, you have that whole thing, Yasuke in the Assassin's Creed situation, that you've added a character that technically is just a footnote in history and making it into a full-fledged history of it. Which that was wrong in itself, because one person said, oh no, it actually happened, and he lied. He lied because he's pushing propaganda. This is propaganda. This has been going on for quite some time now. This is nothing new. I mean, I miss the Ocean dub days. I miss some of the old stuff. It may not have been perfect, but at least they tried to get it proper. And eventually they changed it properly in the years that goes by to redo it. Like Akira, they finally got it right when they redubbed it. And you're looking at Dirty Pair right now. Dirty Pair is finally getting an English dub using the two actresses, the voice actresses that were in I think it's the OVA dubs, or one of the other dubs that they did Dirty Pair, they did in English, they did in the rest of the series that way, and a remaster of the series. And this was, you know, Kickstarter. This was funded on Kickstarter. And it's going to be out hopefully in the next year. Because I know last I heard is that they're in the final processes. The work is being done here in New York. Out on Long Island City. A production house out there that's doing all the audio work to that nature. But, you know, this one needs to be done. Is you need to stamp your foot. And I tell these production companies, these big corps, you know, from overseas, you know, stamp your foot down. This is your product. And you know, some of the people who've created these, you know, they said, well, they're sexist. They're these male sexists. A lot of these stories are created by women. A lot of these mangas, yeah, made by women. Why would you say something to that nature if you don't know who wrote some of this stuff? And a lot of some of the stuff is beautiful stuff. Art, you know, I've always said, anime is artwork. So is the manga. Now we get into the stuff that really, really gets under my craw. And this is the problem that happens. And this is an American firm. You know, Visa, MasterCard, the payment processors, and everybody's pointing blame at each other. And basically what is happening overseas is the payment processors, Visa and MasterCard, are threatening to shut down the ability for some of these companies to make money. In other words, they're saying, well, you know, you have your online services, the stuff that you sell to overseas to the West. We're going to shut you down if you don't censor yourself. Remember, Visa, MasterCard are American companies, American banking that's doing this. We have a constitution in the U.S., freedom of speech. And basically, they're violating that. They may be going overseas, and you might say, well, they're going overseas and stuff like that. But to the point that I'm here in the U.S., and I'm doing business with these companies. And Visa, MasterCard is refusing my purchase because they're blocking my purchase to these companies. And the reason why they're doing it is because it has adult titles. Now, some of you might out there say, well, it's because of the lolly. Some companies, yeah, you're right on that point. The other companies don't deal in lolly. Some of them, not all of them. And some of them deal with other adult themes. Like, for example, they block payments to a site. It was a dating site for otakus. Why would you do that? Why would you do that at all? Because you're not looking to what the companies are. What you're doing is, anything that's listed for anime, anything listed for manga, you're putting blocks on it. That's what you're doing. You're not even bothering to look at the company. And the thing about it is, why would you block stuff that's adult titles? These things are branded on their packaging, on the online site itself. Even when you enter the online site, it says it has adult material listed here and gives you the chance to click away from it. So why would you attack that? Why would you go after, companies like this? Like Melon Books, Libraries, Manga Library Z, Nico Nico. Nico Nico has stuff that's shunga on there, which is part of Japanese history. And then Tornada, DL Site, Fantia, Fanza. All these sites have been attacked by there, and many others. I don't go to these sites, and I don't need to go to the sites. But the thing about it is, access should not be blocked. They should not be lose access because you don't like the content that's on there. The first thing that they always point out, and this is why I slam Vice on this, because Vice put out a video that basically we went to an anime convention, we saw all this lolly and these perverts and everything like that there. They went out of their way to put this, to edit this way. But when you look to the perspective, and I'll tell you, there are YouTubers out there that will tell you the same thing. A lot of these stuff are drawn characters. These are drawn characters that basically they don't really resemble anybody that's out there. They say, well, they look like one particular... Really? Honestly? Which person do you think they look like? The anime world and manga world mostly have a particular, how do they say, a template to their characters. When you learned how to draw anime, your characters look like stuff out of Dragon Ball and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Sailor Moon and many others. And it's always, you see some characters that look the same in, day out. Even characters that are not Japanese, like, certain black characters, certain Spanish characters, certain American characters, they look the same from series to series. That's the one thing good about anime. They're very consistent on their style of anime. Now, obviously, and this is why we have Section 230 in the United States, is because basically, you're going to have some artists that are going to go a little overboard. Allow the companies to handle it their way. If it's within the law, no harm, no foul. If it's against the law, and considering, listen to this, considering, if you understand sex on videotape, pornography and all that in Japan, it's censored. Do you understand that? It is censored. Even hentai is censored in Japan. And people don't bring that up. But here goes where we bring and we wrap this up and bring the hypocrisy on this. And this is what just came out recently. And if you haven't seen this article, it's out there. It's on Reuters. It's on many different sites. Now, you're familiar with OnlyFans, and you know OnlyFans very well. And also, OnlyFans is another thing that's misconstrued. Yes, they do have adult content on there. But there are other people that have different type of content that is not adult content that is on OnlyFans as well. It is the same like YouTube. It's the same as X. It's the same as TikTok. And I said, TikTok, there is porn on TikTok, obviously. But getting to OnlyFans. Now, the payment processors are similar on there. MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, all the above. Recently, a whistleblower, and we'll read this off of the main exclusive, MasterCard and Visa failed to stop payment on OnlyFans for child sex abuse content, said whistleblower. I'm going to read a little bit into this. We're not going to go through the whole article, but we're just going to give you just the main basis on there. MasterCard and Visa failed to stop their payment networks from laundering proceeds from child sex abuse material and sex trafficking on the popular website OnlyFans, according to allegations in a previous undisclosed whistleblower complaint filed with the U.S. Treasury Financial Crimes Unit. The whistleblower, a senior compliance expert in the credit card and banking industries, said the two giant companies knew their networks were being used to pay for illegal content on the porn-driven site since at least 2021, and accused them of turning a blind eye to the flows of illicit revenue. The complaint was filed in January 2023 with the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network and the U.S. Justice and Homeland Security Departments, the whistleblower said. Of course, this is going to be handled during the Trump administration. The complaint said that the whistleblower and other anti-trafficking experts, including U.S. federal agents, alerted Visa and MasterCard to the unlawful content on OnlyFans in a series of calls in 2021 and 2022. The federal agents corroborated the presence of child sex abuse material on OnlyFans, the complaint said. It also drew heavily on a 2022 study by an anti-trafficking group. They said they found a high volume of OnlyFans accounts with common indicators of child sexual abuse material or sex trafficking, the whistleblower said, helped with a study which was shared with credit card companies. Now, understand, I haven't seen the study. So some of these studies can't really trust. OnlyFans, Visa, and MasterCard payment processors between the content creators and their customers. When the content is child sex material, the credit card companies are directly handling the proceeds of these illicit transactions, said complainant. By continuing to process payments on OnlyFans, MasterCard, and Visa, willfully failed to maintain an effective anti-money laundering required by the Bank's Secrecy Act, said the complaint, which urged FinCEN and 2 other federal agencies to take action against the credit card companies. Reuters reviewed an email concerning the FinCEN and had received the complaint. In response to the questions, the agency doesn't confirm or deny the existence of the whistleblower complaints. The Justice of Homeland Security Department declined to comment. Now, the thing about it is, and I'll put to this point, and I'll give the 2 cents on this, from the pornographic industry also. We had some similar allegations in the porn industry itself. Now, we could take it for what it is and a grain of salt to this point. Now, understand, innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. If this is true, if this is what it comes out to, and like what a couple of others have said, which basically, like for example, Tech Times is a little bit more detailed on it. Visa, MasterCard accused of prosecuting for illegal content on OnlyFans, and they call it as illegal content. And what are they calling as illegal content? And it's a fine line, and it has to be careful onto the situation. If this is the point on there, that basically they're banning stuff in Japan, but yet they're turning a blind eye to stuff in the West, a lot of questions here. Most of this can be blamed to the CEO that's running the payment processors in the East. That also is a situation, because you have people in certain parts of this industry, whether it's payment processors, whether it is English dubbers, subtitles, basically licensed contracting for streaming, stuff like that, basically will sit there and pass judgment onto the product they have. And take it from someone who has worked in the duplication and editing end. My first job was working for a company out here in New York. It's the latter part of the VHS industry, going into DVD and also high-speed duplication, which basically that was done by Sony, that we never edited our stuff. Now, if the particular license holder wanted to release an edited down version of their product, which, for example, and I've said this before on people online, there are technically 3 versions of It's a Wonderful Life. One version is no longer available out there. There are 2 other versions, because people were like slamming Amazon for, say, editing it down. But that edited down version has been always there, going all the way back to the 1980s. It's always been there. And the thing is that if the owners of themselves want to, with the agreement of the person who did the movie, the series on there, that's their situation. But the other half of this is, while I was working there, whether it was porn, whether it was kung fu movies, classic movies, regular films, stuff that came off of HBO, because we had a contract with Hemdale Greendale, which was basically movies like the movie FX, Return of the Living Dead, and many others that was put on VHS at that time period. They were never edited down. No, not one iota. The ones that we got, beginning to end, it says, how you know? We got the original masters to them. We were in compliance to make sure. And the thing about it is, our quality control people were on top of it too, because basically back then, quality control means we had to pop a tape into a VHS machine and make sure it recorded, beginning, middle, and end. And the reason why back then we didn't have this type of situation was we just came out of the true censorship of that period, and that was the Hays Code. If you remember the Hays Code, I mean from the 30s to the 50s into the 60s, I mean, yeah, there was some great movies, but a lot of it was edited. I mean, there's a Humphrey Bogart movie out there that they just completely eliminated a subplot to the entire that would wrap everything all together, and change the ending because they did not want the ending to the way they wanted it. And you could say, yeah, that does happen today too. And that's the thing that gets me, is like, stay with the story, stay with what made it popular to that point. Because when we got to the 70s, we got some great stuff. We had a renaissance, and nobody held back as much. And you saw there were people out there like Morality and Media and many others that sat there and tried to censor a lot of this stuff, that tried to attack movie theaters for playing some of this stuff. They had people arrested, calling it that basically that it, that it was heinous and that it should not be shown. If you don't like something, you don't need to watch it. If it deals with sexual abuse of children, that's a no-no. That's a total no-no. You don't want that stuff. But don't go around calling children sexual abuse on things that has nothing to do with it. And that's the problem today. People will sit there and call racism, or white supremacy, Nazi, CP, and all this stuff on programming. But meanwhile, they're producing stuff that basically has a political agenda to itself. This is Orwellian as it goes. That's why I say we're in Hays Code 2.0 when it comes to Hollywood. Hollywood is literally burning, literally and figuratively, when it comes down to it. And you see this shit that's going on there. The tides are starting to change back. I believe we're going to go through another renaissance. Some of it's going to be pushed by anime in itself. Because there's going to be a point where there are going to be new payment processors out there. Because they say, well, if you don't like it, go make it yourself. Well, maybe, Japan and some of the banks in Japan need to make their own credit card lines and push that out to people on the West. So at least they'll be able to buy stuff. Because remember, you got places like Australia and Russia and many other countries that block anime and manga content and fans and fan gear. That they're not allowed to have it. They're not allowed to buy it. They're not allowed to import it. And this has been happening for the last couple of years. Wasn't a problem before. Just only when the political climate changed, when everyone started to slide. Even though there was issues back in the day. And remember, going back to the WB and all that, the WB kids, remember the 1990s, they attacked entertainment, music, and video games. They didn't get into anime at that time. That was happening from basically the networks themselves because they didn't want to get regulated for that as well. And this is what killed the Saturday morning cartoon, was basically government intervention. Lying to the public, saying kids are not getting an education out of watching cartoons. There was educational stuff in the cartoons, but cartoons were made to sit back, relax, and enjoy and take your mind off of the day. You may have had a hard day. I watch a cartoon to take my mind off things. I watch an anime to take my mind off things. Don't censor the story. It's like tearing a page out of a book. Would you do that? Would you do that? It does happen. Ask the people who own the IP for Dr. Seuss. They've had several of their books removed because people didn't like the caricatures that were in the story itself. These are fictitious characters. They're meant as a humor. And it's the same thing with World War II cartoons, stuff from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. As far as cartoons, they said, "Oh, no, they're being racist." No, they're just trying to get a laugh. Remember, they're doing the same thing to comedy. They're trying to edit comedy. If George Carlin was alive today, he'd be fighting still today for his type of comedy. Remember, he went to jail for that. He went to jail for his comedy. Same thing with Lenny Bruce. It's our dark times in the West. America is a great place to live, but we're not perfect. But we do fight for rights. And we do change things around when we see that it's wrong. Our forefathers wrote the Constitution a certain way and to handle it. And there are those out there that are trying to twist it and pervert it. But that's why we have the courts, and that's why we have the voter base that we have today. So comment. Let me know your thoughts about this. Let me know how you feel about this. To the piracy, the situation. Because here's how we end this. Today, when it comes to piracy, as much as basically the pirated sites that have been shut down, new ones have cropped up. And it continues to basically people to go out there and seek this stuff out because of the censorship, because basically of the editing. We want to see interspecies reviewers. We want to see that. We want to see Redo the Healer. We want to see an unedited Macross Dynamite 7. We don't want them edited. We want the stories to maintain their stories that were written by the original creators. We don't want any more this editing. And we want these companies like Visa and MasterCard to stop with attacking these and telling them to self-edit themselves. Violates our Constitution in the West. It does. No matter how you feel on it. As much as you get to the point that piracy will continue on until the point where people can access the content from anywhere, at any time, unedited, uncensored, proper dialogue, whether it is in the original language, subtitling, or an English dub. This is how it's supposed to be. So let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share this video, and hopefully today is the day I've earned your subscription. So until next time, this time next week, which we will be in February. It'll be the first week of February, heading to Valentine's Day. So until then, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out Man with the Show daily, weekdays here on Q2Cast TV, and we'll see you next week. Have a good week. Take in some anime. Take in some manga. Treat it like a fine wine. Taste it. Smell it. Enjoy it. And then have a good week. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for watching, commenting, and sharing this video. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe as this helps the reach of this channel. Finally, as a content viewer, you have the ability to help support this channel as new internet laws around the world will diminish our reach and affect our sponsors. If you choose to help, there are two ways listed in the description below. The first link will lead you to a pay site where you can make a monetary donation. The second will lead you to our gear shop where you can buy shirts, mugs, and other gear. Discounts will be listed on the site. Once again, thank you for watching and your support.